Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Knights of the Alternate Histories. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what if Hungary seceded from Austria Hungary after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Now, if you didn't know, there was a huge Hungarian civil war in 1848, which left the Hungarians having power, but wanting to keep Franz Joseph as their monarch, they kept him instead of succeeding. So, what if they decide to succeed in 1914? 1914, and the map looks like this, with Germany and Austria-Hungary at their max power, and France being bitter and looking for a war as long as well with Russia. Serbia planning on trying to take revenge for the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm sorry I pronounced that wrong. And Hungary and Austria still united, though this would change fast. With the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, Hungary seeing that there's no way to actually be able to keep a strong Austria-Hungary with no more strong heir, they would be forced to secede from the Union, and Austria would be left to fend for itself. Franz Joseph would no longer be the monarch of Austria-Hungary, and Hungary would try to move into a more democratic/monarchic position. Now the map would look like this, with Austria going up in the north and Hungary in the south. This would lead to even more divide. A small war would break out, but not major enough to mention. More of minor border conflicts, as Austria couldn't keep a strong enough military to try and keep on fighting. This would very much hinder Austria, but Hungary could start growing stronger. Serbia would see this as an absolute win, as not only did they assassinate someone without getting anything caught with it, but also they managed to break up Austria-Hungary. This would lead Serbia to feel more confident in its efforts and be more bolder than it was in our timeline. This would very much hinder Serbia, as its hubris would take over its regular thinking. The different minorities within Austria-Hungary would rebel against the Germanic population. Franz Ferdinand, wanting to keep control, would decide to hold. I'm sorry, I said Franz Ferdinand, I meant Franz Joseph. Franz Joseph would try and take control by anchoring his forces in the mountain, and by throwing the full might of the army at this small rebellion to introduce a democratic system. The Austrian forces would try and make their defense around Vienna to try and hold that on as strong as they can. Meanwhile, the democratic forces would just try to push through and destroy everything. This would lead to a rather failing system of government, as with all of the different minorities, they would try and all take power at once. This would lead to a stronger defense by the Germans. Vienna would quickly fall behind enemy lines, with only having a small portion connecting it to the rest of Austria. Meanwhile, the democratic forces would just try to take the rest of them and starve out the city. Vienna would hold strong, only losing minor grounds at parts, and even taking ground at others, with this being the bulk of the Austrian forces. Germany would send some troops to help, but not enough to make a difference. The democratic forces would enact their plan and nearly cut Austria in half, with the Alp Mountains protecting as sort of a buffer zone for the other part of Western Austria. This would leave Franz Joseph to have two options: flee or die with his men. Vienna would start to fall and quickly almost be taken, so Franz Ferdinand would be forced to flee to Germany, and the democratic forces would rule in victory. Franz Ferdinand would quickly flee to Germany, as Germany would offer him refuge and even a noble position as a monarch in exile. Hungary, seeing this, would choose their own monarch, of course, but would feel bad for Franz Ferdinand and offer him refuge. Being already hurt by an army in his own territory, he would fear this would be a Hungarian trap and would stay in Germany for the rest of his life. there would be a new nation established called Western Austria. This would be a buffer zone from the Alps so the Democrats would not try and take it over. Meanwhile, the rest of Austria, which is just Croatia and Slovenia, would almost entirely fell immediately. And with that, they would prepare to surrender. But they would be forced to fight even longer. Lenin, without a World War I and not being able to take advantage of Russia, would see this Western Austria as an opportunity and would quickly try to seize power. Using the same strategies he did in our own timeline with the Russian Revolution, Western Austria would quickly fall to communism. This would make a new Austrian state that would be communist and would be the first communist power. This would be relatively unnoticed, but some former socialists would flee there. Meanwhile, Croatia and Slovenia would keep their stand strong, continuously trying to fight the democratic forces that would try and place a new regime. As the Germanic forces would work close with the Croatians, they would see this as an absolute win and would keep on fighting no matter what. The Croatian forces now in charge of the army would seek to establish Croatian dominance now, and this Austrian civil war would become rather equal rule from German rule to equal rule versus Croatian rule. The Croatians would keep on fighting, though with their small population, they would be forced to have to surrender. This would very much hurt this Croatian relationships, always trying to seek independence. Now, with only 3 strongholds, they could either fight and just wipe out the Croatian population, or actually have a chance at these democratic reforms they're talking about. Czechoslovakia, well, more Chechnya, leading this revolution, would quickly try and get them to agree. This would lead to a huge rise in nationalism. They would establish the United States of Central Europe and adopt this flag with a stripe representing every minority population in Europe, meaning that everyone could get a say in this new republic. This would become one of the first democratic nations in Europe to truly become a full republic. The monarchies would see a weak thing to be able to easily crush after this. Hungary would be mad at Serbia for executing one of their heirs to the thrones and causing this whole succession, so they would want to destroy Serbia, but they couldn't, especially with Russia, and Albania, who's being protected by Serbia, would see this as a threat and would quickly decide to invade, cutting off Serbia from the sea and its only land routes to Russia being through Romania. Albania would quickly fall, with the more experienced Hungarian forces just pushing through. Serbia would watch in horror, and if they declared war, Russia wouldn't protect them. So they would be forced to have to watch their neighbor and friend die slowly. Albania would fight to the last man, but quickly would be outnumbered and would be forced to surrender. Hungary would take all of Albania, as without that, then it would be horrible, because Serbia now would have no one, except for maybe Romania and Bulgaria and Greece, but that's only if the Ottomans invade again, and Ottomans and the Hungarians are looking increasingly more friendly. Meanwhile, Germany would also try and establish relations with this huge new powerhouse. Hey everybody, thank you guys for watching. That was a great video, and I hope you guys like and enjoy. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more alternate histories, and if you want to see wacky ideologies. This series was really fun to make, and especially making Border Gore is actually pretty fun, so I hope you guys did enjoy. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to have a good one, and goodbye. Wow, what a great video! Subscribe now. Watch this video on the left about, well, I don't know, because it's my most recently uploaded. And watch this one on the right, which YouTube thinks you should watch. So watch it now, or click in the center and subscribe. No, I'm not gonna ask nicely. Subscribe now.